Hey friends, welcome to another episode of the 10 Laws Podcast with East Forest. I'm Mr. Forrest. Happy New Year. Welcome back into the flow, into this spaceship Earth as it is hurtling, spiraling through space as we all go through our stuff. And that's why my conversation with Erika Wright this week is fitting. She is a codependency counselor, and that's a word that gets bandied around a lot, and something I have interest in my own life and relationships. And I think we all want to think about how to do them better, but it's almost become like a pop culture term. And so it's good for us to pick it apart and look at it not just through the lens of strictly, like a DSM psychological vantage point, but also more of a holistic, even spiritual perspective. So I know you're going to find this conversation super interesting. And thank you, Tiffany, for the recommendation of having Erika on the show. Coming up, I'm going to be in San Francisco doing the Deep House Yoga event on January 18th. And that's pretty cool because it's going to be some asana that I'm playing a live accompaniment for. And then I'll flow that right into a full concert where you can lie down ceremony concert style in the yoga experience. So it's all levels. If anyone is interested in coming to enjoy the music, you can make it what you want it to be. That's at eastforest.org for tickets, and that is on January 18th. And then Reunion, the Costa Rica ceremony retreat, is on the 4th of February. It's coming right up until the 10th. This is an intimate experience of me playing music from multiple ceremonies in a beautiful, beautiful setting on the west coast of Costa Rica, along with other modalities. Marissa Rada-Wepner will be there, cacao, breath work, yoga, relaxing, meditation. I get to share other forms of music too, like stuff I've been working on. But it's all centers around several live ceremony experiences together. That's the tent pole of that work. And if you're interested or feeling that call, again, go to eastforest.org. Click on the tickets tab. It'll take you through and you can learn more information about that. We're going to have more events, of course, announced into the year. We're working on that. Lots of big announcements, lots of big plans for this year, and more on that soon. I, for one, am happy that the holidays are past. I had a lovely holiday, mostly here in Boise. I did have to hop out to New York City and back, which was always interesting. It's like a past life for me over there. I think I find it relatively refreshing, getting some of that East Coast juice, the directness of expression. But I like to be engaged in work. I like to be engaged in making things. We are creative beings. So I'm happy that we're back at it. It's a bit cold here in Boise. It's very cold, but we're going to get some breaks in this, and we're blessed to have that. But I'm excited to share with you lots of music that's in the work and experiences. I hope you enjoyed. If you caught it, the live stream, it's still up on YouTube. I did a live stream for the winter solstice on December 21st. That's a long-form ceremony-style concert. And I want to thank everyone on our Patreon because that's kind of who inspired me. I do a monthly Patreon council. We call it the Council on Patreon. And this was kind of like my monthly meeting gift gathering. We just expanded it in the spirit of the gift to everyone in the world. Patreon.com/EastForest is the way you can check that out. Join us, support us, be in the spirit of the gift. But we also have lots of ways to gather over there. And I get to share all kinds of music that's unreleased and other things, which I just did. And go see if it's for you. I'm pretty sure you can do a free trial on definitely certain tiers. And I want to say thank you to support for everyone who is on the Patreon. Last year was awesome, and I'm digging in to give more things out this year, and I appreciate the journey that we are on together over there. But let's dive into this experience with our new friend, the wonderful Erika Wright. Hi, Erika. Nice to see you. Nice to meet you.
Yeah,
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
Yeah. So you said you're in Petaluma, but I detect an accent that's not Petaluman.
No, I don't know. I am from Boston, terminally. That's what's up with
Nice.
me. That's what's wrong with me.
I spent 2 years in the
Yeah.
Boston area in Cambridge. So I mean, I got a little bit of Boston in my life, and so I have a soft spot for. I was trying to remember. Oh, Somerville
Somerville.
was right. Right,
Yeah.
I was on the edge of summer. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
I love
you
it.
made it. You got in and you got out. So good job.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I would imagine that feels pretty formative for. I mean, we could just start with sort of where you
Yes.
came from before we get to where you're at
Yes.
now. I mean, can you tell me a little bit about growing up in Boston?
Yes. Well, here's what I'll say. I'm always really glad that I'm from there, and I'm always really glad I don't live there. And I feel like,
Yeah.
my parents are actually from the Midwest. They're from Indiana. And, they went to
Mm-hmm.
Boston to, I think, escape the Midwest and have me. And I always grew up sort of feeling like I didn't, it's like I didn't really fit in. So if you can have geographic, wrong assignment.
You definitely can. Yeah.
I grew up like it.
That is a thing.
And it was it's an intense place, or it was when I lived there. I have not lived there for 30 years, so I really don't know what it's like anymore. And now I've lived in California longer than there, but it was intense growing up, It's a very neighborhood divided. I grew up predominantly with Italian and Irish people. That was it. I think there was like one black family. My stepdad was from Dorchester, like hardcore butt smoking white guy from
Hardcore Dorchester. Yeah.
Gotta grow up and
I
get a
love it.
job. Gotta get a job with benefits right away.
Get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
All that. So it's like
Yeah.
every movie, whatever, The Departed and all that, Good Will Hunting. It's true. It's like I grew up with a family.
Yeah.
There was 17 brothers and sisters. No
Yeah.
joke.
It's amazing. It's amazing. I just got back from New York City, and I spent 14 years it was like New York, Boston, and a little bit upstate New York. And that's kind of
It
a
is a
zone
zone.
and a bit of a world. And to me, yeah, the Northeast, like there's some stuff that I do think the directness is very refreshing.
Yes.
Like, growing up on the West Coast, and I was just there now, and as soon as I got like even into the Uber driver just saying like, how's it going, boss? And I'm like, even that, it's like, I know it's subtle, but thank you. It's just like, you can call me boss. You don't have to ask. Like that's a term of endearment for
Seriously.
anyone. Anyone
It's
can
crazy.
be boss.
And when I first moved to California,
I like
remember
it.
just being like, what is wrong with everybody? Like, they cannot actually be this nice and this happy. Like, something's going to give.
They're not. Yeah.
Which was good because it turned out, oh, yeah, you're all flaky as hell. You just like are like, yeah, I'll be there, man. And then it's like, no, I won't. So that was
Yeah, and that's the thing that I enjoy a little bit. I like that direct communication, for better or worse. It can be helpful just to get
It
things
is.
done.
And
Yeah.
I like to say now it's like the softening that's occurred for me because of living in California. It's like I finally feel like there's a little bit of equilibrium, It's like my dad would come out here
That sounds like a good
walking
goal.
around like in Fairfax and West Marin, standing outside of Good Earth, smoking cigarettes, right? Being like, look at all these assholes. This is just wonderful. It was like asshole was synonymous with person.
Yeah. For my dad, it's
Oh, yeah,
idiots. Yeah. Look at all these idiots. Everybody's an idiot.
It's crazy. It's so good.
So tell us, before we get into
Yeah.
your work, which I'm very interested in personally, just can we connect the dots a little bit of how you got from, or what is your personal interest? I'm guessing some things happen.
I will tell you. Yeah. So, I've really been conscious lately that I think this is my material. It's like codependency is my material. It came with the meat suit straight out the gate, So I have a podcast that's 6 parts, and it basically tells you about how I got so codependent, which initially was, my parents who are, my blood dad's dead, but my mom is still alive, like the best people in the world. It's like they were teenagers when they had me, and it was the 70s. So it's like a very specific section of time. And I basically grew up not being allowed to say that I had a different dad because it would hurt my stepdad's feelings. Like that's where it initially began. So it's like I had siblings, my stepfather and my mom had like 3 more kids, and it was like, here's this thing you can't say. So it was like, it would be helpful to everybody if you would just lie about yourself so that we wouldn't be inconvenienced with discomfort, And then I was also raised Catholic, which that whole shit show is all it's just like, the best codependency training you could ever have, for sure. And then,
well, my partner Rada was also Catholic, big
Yeah.
family down in Florida, so I've heard a
yeah,
lot
it's
about
like, it's
that.
a whole thing, And then, it really teaches you the hardcore conditional and transactional love. Like, if you are not good by these terms we state, you suck. And then you got to beg some dude in a box for forgiveness, and you'll be notified if you, really.
Yeah, and with potential eternal
Yes,
consequences.
yes.
Like, it's about as black and white as it gets.
Right? So it's like all this polarized thinking growing up on the North Shore of Boston, which is like so racist, again, like, and the celebration of colonialism. It's like we went to fucking Plymouth Plantation every field trip, right? And it was just like, so just all polarized thinking, very much about, and I think in Boston anyway, where I grew up, it was a lot of Irish first generation, second generation, and Italian first generation, second generation. So more Catholics, just more, it's just like more Catholics, more basically not telling the truth about anything or having any feelings unless you're drunk. And then, like things sort of exploded when my stepdad and my mom broke up, and I got to basically start to tell the truth about who my blood dad was, and he had died and all that. And it's like I go into it in my podcast. So I move out to California, which was like, I was very eager to leave Boston, but it was really hard for me to leave my blood family, because I was tight and with my siblings and my mom. And I was a bartender for 10 years. I worked at Tower Records. I worked in retail for 10 years. And both those is like, now we're going to pay you to put up with bullshit. Like customer service, it's all, how much shit can you take and for what amount of money? Will you take that shit?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was just more. And then eventually I started going to plant medicine, San Pedro specifically. And I was going to a Native American church, and it was the San Pedro, basically, that began to unravel me and actually start to teach me everything that I know about love, what love really is, and reflect to me how insanely codependent I was. And that, and it's really great because through the eyes of the San Pedro, it's like everybody's innocent. It's not a problem. There's no malice in it. And as I've really dug into this, like in the past 3 years, I was working on it personally since 2009. But then in 2020, at the end of 2020, my brother was living with me, and he had a drinking problem, and I had to kick him out of my house, and it all came to a head. And it was like, I think I'm starting to get a grip on this codependency stuff. And so I'm just going to make a job for myself. I'm just going to be a codependency counselor because it has been present with me since my conception. And, through the lens of the San Pedro. So it's like, I don't really approach it from a psychological standpoint at all. Psychology is great. I love it. I don't really, it's not the lens I look through. So I see it as sort of a spiritual, behavioral, emotional conditioning that we have.
Well, perhaps we could just define those in a sense. Like, what would the differences be between the psychological traditional, perhaps, definition and your
the
viewpoint?
good news is my husband's a therapist, like a real live one, a real live therapist. So I get to bounce a lot.
He's not a robot. No AI.
Did the thing, went to school and did the thing. I get to bounce a lot of my concepts off of him, and, I think a pathology has its own definition, right? Where it's like, a mental condition that stems from potentially some kind of chemical, position or propensity or, something like that, whatever. It's like the way that it looks to me. Okay. And I am not proclaiming to be a fucking expert of anything, is like the codependent patterning that we have in the United States of America. And I'm just, as white people, I'm a white person. I'm not going to say that I think I know what's going on anywhere else in the world. I'm talking about the culture and the society that I grew up in. Is like all of this seems blatantly obvious that it is the, end result of hundreds of years of colonialism and settlerism and organized religion and patriarchy and misogyny, right? Because it all just comes down to, when you look at the definition online, it basically only talks about codependency through addiction. Okay, so it's like that's where the term was coined. That's where we got familiar with like enabling and codependency and basically, control and manipulation, emotional control and manipulation. So in the classic standpoint, it's like, okay, someone's an addict and, there are people who enable that addict so that that addict can continue to use. Okay, which is all basically avoiding discomfort. Everyone wants to keep the addict comfortable, and nobody that's enabling the addict wants to have hard feelings or tell the truth. Okay? Great.
Got it. And then that's different than like, well, let's start there. Yeah.
So then, like, for me, the way the definition has expanded because of the material my life has offered me, it's like customer service. It's all about conditional and transactional love, Catholicism. It's like, unless you are this, God doesn't love you, right? The way women or female-bodied people are taught to be women is like, well, you better look like this and you better do this or you will not be valued by society. It's like all of these different tendrils of conditional and transactional love coupled with that, in the United States of America, what seems apparent to me is people aren't necessarily taught to behave. And there is a series of feelings that are acceptable in our culture. My husband has a saying, for men, it's angry or fine. Okay? For women, it's like everything up until angry, And I want to say here, I understand that these are totally vast, gross generalizations, and it all feels true in my life and in my body, right? So it's all these different ways that we manipulate ourselves or other people to manage our comfort.
All the ways we manipulate
and
other
ourselves,
because it doesn't go both
and
ways.
Ourselves.
Yeah. So like other
and ourselves.
So like in the traditional model, other people are codependent when they're helping the addict in a pejorative way, and you're saying it goes the other direction. The addict is codependent on the other people. What? Because they're accepting it, or they're also manipulating?
Well, and it's like a really classic example would be something like, well, my partner is living with me. We're in a relationship. They're an addict. but I don't want to kick them out because we have kids. You know, I don't want to bust any big moves because of how disruptive it would be for my life or them.
And where's the line between, I suppose, compassion
That's right.
or good sense?
Right. Depends, right? It's like it totally depends on, you know, and this is where the codependency comes in. So it's like, for me, I have a variation, like a spectrum of definitions, if you will, or, you know, around codependency. If you are working harder at someone else's life than they are, here are some indications. If you do not tell the truth for fear of the love being taken away or someone else's response, okay? What's another good one? Doing things that you don't want to do or to your detriment repeatedly. Right?
That sounds like addiction, right? Or a sort of also like just doing something that's just not working.
Well, yeah, or
doing
something over and over again that you hate and you keep doing because you don't want the person to be upset.
Because you're afraid of a response. Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, it feels to me like people, myself included, you know, before I came to the medicine, it's like I was terrified of my hard feelings. Terrified. Didn't want to have them, would do mostly anything to avoid them. Definitely didn't want anyone to be mad at me. I mean, I'm also a Libra, so, you know, that shit's built in. So, you know what I mean? And it was just like, don't want to upset anybody. And from the time I was tiny, it was like, please don't tell the truth because it will be very upsetting. And I'm finding in my work and my groups and my counseling that, like, this is rampant. You know, everyone can identify with this patterning on everybody knows exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about it.
Well, in the framework of a relationship, an intimate relationship, I often thought, maybe it's just my own programming, when I would hear like codependency in a relationship, there was an assumption it had to do with like they rely on each other or it's almost like they can't be apart or it's that. But I'm hearing this is a bit different. This is more just like you're not living in authenticity in a sense, and you're denying your own self in a way because of fear of someone else.
And it comes down to relationship with vulnerability, right? So true intimacy, in my experience now, true intimacy, you know, not the sexy kind, but actual intimacy comes from only transparency and vulnerability. And what we have is a lot of cheap substitutes for intimacy, like politics. We all agree, blah, blah, blah. So we're in a group and you're like this and we're like this and we belong to this. That's not intimacy. Yeah, that's a bunch of people agreeing that their thoughts are right. That's not intimacy. Okay? And then the same thing, like gossip, a cheap substitute for intimacy. We're a group and we say you suck and you're like this, so we feel better about ourselves, right? It's like, you know, so part of what has to happen in the lens and the framework of codependency is you have to see other people as small, weak, fearful, or less than, other than you.
But what about when it's even more insidious and like it's not so overt that you're like, well, let's talk about relationships more, because I feel like that's often like the crucible of a lot of people's work, and maybe they don't see it that way. So it's less, maybe the othering is not like, oh, I don't like Democrats. You know, it's more like I have my partner, and you're like, well, I love my partner. So it's more like, what are our blind spots or sort of things that often happen that create, I suppose,
codependent I will say, you know, I have a very non-codependent practice with my husband. Okay? And what that requires of me is to say the thing I'm not saying all of the time or let it go I'll give you an example. Okay? Okay.
Yeah. I was wrapping my head around some of that.
So we have a
good.
6-year-old and a 3.5-year-old, and we're like fucking 100 years old. It's insane. I just, this is why I get it. I get it. Like, this is why you're, biologically supposed to have kids in your 20s. Anyway, he's almost 60. I'm 51. And a very common pattern, okay, that we could have, that I stick my foot in every once in a while, is resentment that, he can do what he can do with the kids. And then I sometimes, when I am under-resourced and tired and over it, will walk around and be like, oh yeah, look at that bat. Look at him. Of course he's taking a nap. Are you fucking kidding me? This guy's taking a nap. I've been running my ass off all morning long. This is ridiculous. All he does is nap. I do everything. He does nothing. Okay? He does a bunch of shit. This isn't the point. So I think this is really common, and I can build resentment, and then I start to treat him like shit and punish him. And then he has to guess why I'm mad. Okay? So the opposite of that would be, I go to him and I say, I am feeling very under-resourced.
You wake him up.
I wake him up, which if you look at my Instagram page, I scare the shit out of him. It's one of the things I do. I find it hysterical, and it's very healthy for our relationship. So I wake him up and I say, old man, I'm going to need you to get up and help me because I'm having a lot of hard feelings. I feel very under-resourced, and I really need some support right now. Okay? The reality is that is far more vulnerable than me walking around being resentful. Because it's like, he could say, I don't want to, or, no. And, that's going to feel how that feels. But the practice is to tell the truth and say the thing I'm not saying, instead of running the program of punishing myself, worrying that I'm going to inconvenience him or upset him or make him angry. That's our practice,
And then the next step in that, I would assume, would be you have to be okay with not hearing what you want to hear.
So here's the great thing. I don't have to be okay with it. I can feel however I want to feel about it, and
I guess not letting it explode.
That's right.
It's like, that's probably why people avoid it.
And
they're like, it's going to turn into a fight.
So this is the avoiding of the feelings that I'm talking about. So he gets to respond however he will, and I get to have all of my feelings about it, and it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean he doesn't love me. It doesn't mean he doesn't like our kids. It does all the meaning that we assign to other people's feelings and our own, right? So it feels like, in the United States, our feelings are a fucking emergency. Okay? Yeah, it's like we have been taught. This is why there's Doritos and, meth and, soda and movies and porn. And it's just like, all, whatever. All those things exist for whatever, and people use them for whatever. But mostly they use them to change or deal with the feelings that they are having that they do not like.
So it takes a level of emotional maturity to be able to self-regulate and say, like, things are gonna, like, the tide will rise, the tide will fall, and being more practiced in having patience.
Well, and I don't even know,
like, this feeling's gonna move, as opposed to I gotta fix it right
I don't know if it's maturity or bravery, courage. Yeah,
both.
Right?
I mean, there's a wisdom, I should say. I mean, if we're going to have archetypes of male and female, I know for myself and a lot of men, it's like also want to fix it.
That's right.
Like solutions.
That's right.
Like, okay, there's a problem. Well, let's fucking fix it right now. Like, here's some ideas.
Well said.
That's part of that same energy of, like, I know it can be hard for me to, if something's really uncomfortable, even when I know, well, of course it will change eventually, I don't want to be in that space with my partner. And so I'm like, what can we do to like dial this down?
Yes.
You know?
So my practice my husband and my practice is this. Everybody gets to feel however they feel, and no one has to do anything about it, and the love stays. The love doesn't get taken away. Okay, and we're trying this with our kids. And I will tell you right now, this is the fucking palace of hurt feelings. Like, everybody in this house has hurt feelings at least 600 times a day, you know? It's like my 3-year-old told me once that the entire world hurt her feelings. And I was like, girl, tuck in. Okay? So it's really knowing that the love is in the forefront, and your thoughts and your feelings are present, but they're not running the show.
And sometimes, though, when people get dysregulated,
Absolutely.
of course, you say things that you don't fully
Absolutely.
mean. Or if you've really crossed
That's
lines,
right.
let's say, of labeling, blah, blah, blah. And I guess letting that kind of sit or the dust settle there,
That is
that's
tough.
tough.
It absolutely
That's
is.
hard to do. Because you ideally, when you come back to regulation, you would hope there's a sense of ownership
right.
too. It's like, hey, I was
Yeah,
dysregulated.
that's
I am
right.
sorry about that. I did not intend to hurt your feelings. I recognize I did. That doesn't
No,
always happen.
it doesn't.
Right?
Right. So then there's
so
this,
that's where resentment can start to come in too, where it's like, man, we had this blow up. We kind of here. I'm just saying that this could be a negative
Sure.
outlook on it, and we ignored it in a sense. We let it just be. Now it's a week later. We never talked about it, or nothing. I guess that was accepted in a sense.
Well, that would just be more avoidance.
So in some ways, processing, like, there has to be in this process a kind of not just transparency and vulnerability upfront, but it's like there's
That's
a process
right.
here.
Well, and there is the constant practice of turning towards each other instead of turning away. So it's like my husband and I, you know, and I will say, like, it's not perfect. We got something going that's working for us, you know, and it's our vows to each other is that we will turn towards one another and turn towards the love, because that's the way we like it. We've both been married before. We've both had hundreds of relationships before. And this is what we've always wanted from our partner, was somebody who would love us, leave us alone, and not take the love away. You know, I feel like folks, human beings, and it's okay. It's like, I think this is something that's really beautiful about us, are so terrified that the love is going to be taken away that it's like, I'm not even going to bother to open my heart, you know? And there's all kinds of really great new words for it, and attachment and all that stuff. But it's just like, in the simplest form, you know, it's like, will you love me even when I show you the worst parts of myself? And then, okay, and then will you actually forgive me, and even worse than that, let it go?
So, in relationships, that's a kind of commitment in a sense we make
That's
to
right.
each other. And I'm thinking about, like,
Yeah,
friendships or
That's
business relationships where, like, let's say all those lines have been crossed over and you feel like, wow, that you saw the worst of that person for whatever reason, and you're like, I don't want to
That's
be
right.
friends with this person.
Then that is solid.
Yeah, as opposed to, like, the love
That's
has
right.
waned.
Then that's how you know where your limitation is, right? So it's like nothing that I can find in non-codependency is black and white. It all depends. It depends. It depends. It depends. It all depends. Right?
Totally. Because, I mean, of course it's complex. That's what makes being
That's right.
human so rich.
That's
It's complex.
Right. And so, like, the simplest way, you know, because, you know, my thoughts will explode and whatever. It's like, it's something's either the love or it's not the love.
In your mind,
In
you're
my
saying?
heart.
Or
It's
that's
like,
how the
this
in
is
your heart.
what I'm interested in, you know? And it's like, I'm interested in the love. If my husband cannot have loving behavior with me, then we wait till he can, okay? And then the work for me is that the love isn't going anywhere.
I see that as maturity.
Well,
I mean, that's a
I
level
hope
of,
so. I
I
am
would call it
51 years
emotional
old.
maturity. It's like you've learned over
Yes.
time. That's a
Yes.
learned behavior, I would
Yes.
assume. And that's something I think important to note, that this is maybe not your first reaction or
No.
natural reaction. It can be, there's a grist in there of like, this is not feeling good, or it doesn't feel like it might work, but you're sort of building a trust over time
That's
in
right.
yourself internally.
Yeah, it is an arc of a lifetime practice. It's an arc of a lifetime practice. I do not think I will get through codependency in this lifetime. And there's something about that that's, oh, okay, well then I can just relax, It's one less thing that I have to, fix or heal. Better heal it up, It's just like, oh wow, I can really just allow this to be without thinking I need to eradicate it. And I like who I am becoming because of it. It's like the only reason that I have for unraveling from my codependency, honestly, is I just want to give and receive more love. It's all about the love for me. It's not to prove anything to anybody. It's just like, I love the love and I want to know how to give it better and I want to know how to receive it better.
Was that the message in a sense from the
Yes.
ceremony work, from the
Yes,
medicine
the
work?
San Pedro, master teacher of love in my life. The softest, most unrelenting, clear,
Very
force
clear, yeah.
of love, of just that, anything I ever brought to it, anything. The worst of my material, my biggest grievances of humanity, it would just always softly direct me back to, looks to me like you just want some love. I'd be like, damn it. Show me the secrets of the universe. Well, looks like you need some love.
That is the secret,
right.
perhaps. How do you think, how does the framework of codependency fit into how people perhaps approach modern medicine work? Is there sort of a blind spot there?
Well, again, doesn't feel so polarized, but it's like, in one way, I feel like, at least for me, it's like I started doing medicine work because I just could not take another second on my own bullshit, And it's sacred, beautiful. I love my bullshit so much. This is not a problem. But it was just like I had, been on my journey of trying to and wanting to and, having a prayer to be happy. Right? Like there's got to be something. I'm willing for things to be better than this. I'm willing for things to be better than this. So like initially, I think I was motivated by wanting to change my feeling states. And I was like a hardcore boozer, drugs. It's like I went every avenue, of these glimpses of trying to deepen my relationship with my creator, through managing my feeling states or, trying different things. And, the medicine, yes, changed my feeling states, but it was so much more than that. It was like I had a genuine prayer to find out what my creator felt like to me,
Do you make any differences between codependency and enmeshment? Or is that
I
just
think
sort of
it's
getting into
another,
psychology
I
terms?
think it's a synonym in the min. Synonym?
One of those.
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
I really also am pretty excited about, we're creating a lot of language that is, at least for the time being, pinpointing with a little bit more accuracy what our experience as human beings are, and I think it feels like this time in our humanity, and again, like in the United States, codependency is on deck because we got to learn how to get along. We have got to learn how to be in relationship. And we have the privilege as we are doing right now, of like, you're over where you are, I'm where I am, people all over the whatever will hear this, right? So it's like we have the privilege for the first time in this iteration to be able to start to dissect our relationships. I think about this all the time. So I'm 51. I would say 55 years ago, a woman could not open a bank account without a man's signature. That's not that long ago. Okay. And,
No.
people, women, and I acknowledge that this is still true all over the, in places in the world, but it's like people were property. Nobody could sit down and go, I just don't really know if this relationship with my mom is fulfilling for me. It was just, or if I even want to have kids, or, how do I want to be in relationship with my partner? This is like brand spanking new. Brand new.
Yeah, definitely a place of privilege, right? I mean, the spiritual journey in itself, not that it's not at all only for those who have the time, but when you have the time,
when you have the time and you have the legal rights.
Bigger questions. Yeah, I mean, it's a whole other journey. And so when we think about like blind spots, this is something I think about a lot. And in like the modern wellness movement, whatever it is, it's so commercialized and often feels quite quick fixes and maybe relatively, there's not as much depth. Like it's sort of a narrow focus at times, as opposed to like maybe the biggest lesson there is about patience.
Yeah.
It's like there's a reason why our lives are typically long, and it's all part of campus Earth. Like, that idea that all choices are valid. I think you worded it a different way, but that doesn't mean they're all like easy or fun or work out how you wanted. But it's like they're all valid.
Here's the thing I love about true medicine work, okay, is it's between you and the medicine. That is a very intimate relationship. And I think a lot of times in healing situations, it's like we're looking to someone else, a person. And, it's like whatever that works for, as long as it does, to tell us some shit about ourselves, instead of, or on the way to, knowing what's true for you, you taking that time, the medicine reflecting to you like your truth, where you want the love, where you want to go.
There's a line Ram Dass said I love so much, that the real work happens in the privacy of your own heart. And it's true. All the layers down, we all have this flicker of consciousness. And I think the strange tragedy of our times is that most of us feel or have been told that is the most irrelevant part. Like, that's just some random voice. That's my internal. That's the thing that literally has no impact on the world.
That's right.
And I think it's the reverse.
Right? So it's like, that's what's so beautiful. And what I love about when you start to unravel from codependency is like, through the framework of codependency, in my life, it's like I look to everybody else to tell me how I was doing. Everybody else, right? Look, my boyfriend, how am I doing? And really, one of the beautiful things that the practice of non-codependency offered me was like, oh, I'm checking in with myself. Where's my integrity? How do I like myself right now? How do I like how I'm behaving? How am I doing, right? And I think so much of the world that we live in, it's like either or, instead of like a little bit of both. Like, where's the midline here, right? It's all them or it's all you, right? Softening all of those edges to, it's like I answer to my creator and I answer to my own good way.
Yeah, I can also see like someone who's fanatical saying exactly the same words. Like taking the same methodology in their way and twisting it to the ultimate.
That's right. Othering. It happens all the time, And then, how loving can I be? How vulnerable can I be in my relationships? So
what are like litmus tests or ways that you can sort of sort of test for people listening, like, how do I know?
How do I know if
or
I'm
what can I do?
codependent?
Or techniques. And sure. Or if things are working or not,
Yeah.
they want to know what the North Stars are and ways to sort of test it. in a
Well,
sense.
it's like I said before. So resentment, expectation, disappointment are all indications of codependency for me. Right? Resentment usually comes from me doing a bunch of shit I don't want to do and not telling the truth. Okay? Expectation is basically shit I make up about other people that isn't true. I set an expectation and then I'm disappointed when they are not who I think they are and they are who they are.
Which it happens all the time in life.
Right?
Oh, you're not. I think that's everyone who meets me. They're like, oh, I thought you were
That's
this and that. Yeah.
Yeah. And we do it, but we do that shit in our our personal relationships too. It's like, gee, I wish my parents were blah, blah, blah. It's like that is the practice of having a fantastical relationship. I deserve blah, blah, blah. That is a practice of having a fantastical relationship. This is why Hollywood rules. And again, it's like, I love this part of our humanity. It's like, can we keep this and also have a good relationship with reality?
And what was the third one? The first was expectations was second.
Disappointment, resentment.
Disappointment was first. Oh, resentment was
first.
Yeah. So when you're disappointed. Yeah, it reminds me a little bit, I'm thinking of the Four Agreements too. It's not the same exactly, but this idea of not having assumptions and doing your best. So I just want to bring up like the spirit of our fathers, idiots and assholes out there, and think about like, well, how do you not be an asshole? It's one thing to tell your truth. I'm all for it, but I don't need someone who's just like, where's your compassion here, or your decorum, so to speak? It's like there's a reason for grace. Yes. You want to have grace, but also then be love. That's essentially. Right. And so there is an art to it, I think, in a way, as opposed to I'm just cold. It's all about me kind of thing. Like, here's my truth.
Well, I think.
But I suppose that's where it's not black and white. No, it's not
black and white. And like one of the things I try to do, and I cannot really stress how much of not an expert I am at this, but it's my prayer. It's like it's one of my North Stars, okay, which is this, and it is fucking impossible. I want to accept myself exactly as I am, and I want to accept everybody else exactly as they are, and love them anyway. Good luck to you. Good luck to me. It's like this is what I'm trying to do at this point in my life. Is just and the softening that I can do to that. And another thing that's really helpful is the truth that I don't know shit about anybody. I do not know anything about anybody. I am lucky on a good day if I think I have a clue about myself. And that's always changing. It's like, I really thought I didn't like Tom Petty. And then the other day I was like, oh shit, I think I like Tom Petty. At least pre, 1985. I do like this guy. Right? So it's like, we don't know. And we come from a culture and a society where like, if you don't know, oh, you're in the shit. There's something wrong with you if you don't, right? It's
Unsafe.
Like, no one knows anything about anything. Does that not make you relax? It's like, oh, finally, I can unclench my butthole. I don't have to know anything about anyone. Thank God.
Sure. I mean, we feel like we have to project other people being in charge, and not only being in charge, but then ruining everything for us, whether it's some cabal or another party. The good news, bad news is that no one's driving this bus. We keep pretending people are. Right. But it's just mass collective decisions. Just to turn the corner here as we round this out, I want to go back to the relationship question. And if you're really working to accept people as they are and yourself as well, it seems though a key element in that soup to really make it taste right is the leaning into the love part. Like, because it's so easy in a way when you're not feeling right or you're trying to accept something yourself or to sort of
That's right.
retreat or to lash
that's
out.
right.
Depends on what's happened to you in life. But I'm hearing you say that it's really critical not to retract the love, and I would imagine that's kind of
Yes.
difficult.
It absolutely
do.
is.
You kind of have to consciously lean. Like, it might just be like, I'm feeling angry, but this gesture of touching
That's right.
on the back, it's like I'm going to do
That's right.
certain
On
things
purpose.
or not do certain things that
On
are
purpose.
loving. Yeah, that I'm not really
No,
feeling.
well, or leaning into it. It's like I notice the time, and I think the contraction is normal. The lashing out is normal. It's like all of these, and bringing an element of choice, right? Instead of it all being reactivity, which you can access when you can access it. Okay? Depends. And, the thing that I try to do in my relationships is, when I'm done contracting and lashing is I am in it for the love. Where can I choose the love? Which, it might mean that despite, me thinking that it would feel so much better if I could withhold the love and punish this man so he would see how right I am, to put my hand on him and tell him that I love him and I don't care about being right, because I don't. And that really I am in this relationship to see how much I can open my heart, regardless of the outcome. Because the outcome for everybody is the same, and it's this. Every single person that you love is going to leave you. Everybody's going to die. It's all going to go away. Everything is going away. Everything. Your kids, your dogs, your cats, your parents, us. It's like we are all going to do the one thing. Right? We're all going to do the one thing. Everything you love is going to go away. So, being really sober about that outcome, put all your chips on how much you can love today. Because you're right. It's all going away. Everyone's going to leave you. So get into it.
That's a form of full accountability.
Yeah.
A lot of this is, and ultimately, the accountability of like how much can you lean into love or open to love or receive love.
That's
in
right.
the moment.
And you do not have to. You do not have to. You would be making a choice and a step in the direction of how you want your life to feel. It's all for you.
It does come down to choice. And I think that's perhaps the beauty of incarnation.
That's
it's
right.
like all choices are valid, meaning, hey, we're
That's
time
right.
rich. You don't have to do this in this moment, but you can. It's an invitation, but it's not wrong for you to say not
That's
in
right.
this moment.
Take the love, don't take the love. Love doesn't care.
Love does not discriminate,
right.
in a sense. It's like it's there. I always would say that, like spirit in a way. It's like and the great motherly love. We've all come from mothers. Circles.
That's
within
right.
circles.
Regardless of their
It's just so
behavior.
whether you like it
That's
or
right.
not.
Regardless
it's like
of their
you're
behavior.
inside the embrace.
That's right.
Yeah, and you can't be outside.
No.
Of it. Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that's like the medicine message for me. If I tried to sum it up, I bet it's a feeling of that embrace, and it's like that's grace
right.
to me. And truly thank God
That's
that
right.
exists, because if it didn't, what would this be? It would just be abject chaos. But it's
Makes
not.
it all worthwhile.
It's sort of chaos within that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Erika, how can folks? Sounds like you have a podcast, but I noticed you have a lot of other things going on too. So you do this kind of work
I do.
with
Yeah,
people?
I have codependency, healing codependency support and counseling groups where it's really beautiful. It's like how you actually learn to be vulnerable in real time with other people, and it's all on Zoom, and everyone's really great. You get to have all your feelings and be witnessed by other people, and if that terrifies you, well, then even better. And, you know, it's like I give you direct counseling in the presence of other people, and you find out that all of your material is not unique nor special, and that we all have the same stuff going on, which is good, you know? It's really helpful. So I do those, and then I also do one-on-one counseling with people. I also have a chocolate company because, fuck, why not?
I saw that. Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. It all made sense
Yeah,
to
that's
me
right.
when I was
Have
like, all the
6
things
jobs.
you do. I was like,
I'm
that
from
all fits
Boston.
together because it's like music,
Yeah, that's right.
podcast,
That's right. Yeah.
spiritual work,
Yeah.
chocolate
Yeah.
ceremony.
And then I do
Yeah.
women's retreats with my soulmate best girlfriend. And we do that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's great to cross paths. I'm glad Tiffany
I
asked
know.
us to
She's
chat.
the best.
And I love her
Yeah,
and
me
Scott,
too.
and been nothing but a bright light in
That's
my
right.
life since we've crossed paths
May
several
they
years
live
ago.
forever and reign supreme.
And
Yes,
their
of
dogs.
course. Yeah, really happy to talk
Yes.
with you. And I'm a big fan. And yeah, I guess we'll just do this then.
Thanks. Well, I dug it, and hopefully we can do it
Okay.
again sometime.
Me too.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. Well, thank you, Erika, for coming on the show. It was a rich conversation. I so enjoyed diving into your energy and your ideas, and I hope we can do it again. This song you're hearing in the background is called Clay Steps. It's from music for the deck of the Titanic, and we are releasing a deluxe version of the album with 5 more tracks on January 19th. So really soon, there'll be 5 more tracks on this album. That's like a 45% increase for you folks out there into stats. So more on that soon. I'm going to be sharing some of those tracks in advance over on the Patreon. So if you're interested, that's one of the perks we kind of dance around with over there. Patreon.com/EastForest. If I haven't said it before. But yeah, the deluxe version coming out real soon. Hope to see you in San Francisco on January 18th, or a reunion in Costa Rica, February 4th through 10th. Until then, y'all keep walking your walk. Don't take any shit. But if you do it with grace.